Prepare my ship.
Master.
How unfortunate you are attempting to deceive me. You have become
Rival!
When we think of the Galactic Empire, what usually comes to mind are its cold, iron-fisted rule, the terrifying Death Star, and Emperor Palpatine, the dark force behind it all. But the Empire didn't simply spring into existence overnight. It was the result of a slow, insidious shift in philosophy and power that began long before the Clone Wars, carefully nurtured and manipulated by Palpatine himself. To truly understand how the Empire came to be, we need to unpack the core tenets that guided Palpatine's rise and see how his corrupting philosophy was woven into the fabric of the Galactic Republic. Order, through control, the foundation of Palpatine's rule. At the heart of Palpatine's ideology lies a simple but chilling premise. Order can only be maintained through absolute control. To Palpatine, chaos was the greatest enemy of peace, but his solution wasn't diplomacy or shared governance. Instead, he believed that fear and power must be centralized in a single figure, himself, to enforce order. This philosophy reflects a classic authoritarian mindset, where stability justifies the sacrifice of freedom. Palpatine's public persona as Chancellor emphasized unity and protection, but his private strategy aimed to dismantle democratic institutions and concentrate authority. His famous declaration in Revenge of the Sith, "I am the Senate," perfectly encapsulates this philosophy. By reducing the Republic's complex bureaucracy to a single person's will, he justified the collapse of the Republic's democratic traditions. Control wasn't just a tool for governance, it was a means of reshaping the galaxy's entire political structure. Fear as a motivator, manipulating anxiety to gain power. Closely tied to control is Palpatine's use of fear as a motivator. He understood that fear can be one of the most powerful tools for manipulating populations and individuals alike. By stoking the fears of the Senate, the Jedi, and the general populace, Palpatine positioned himself as the sole solution to a galaxy on the brink of chaos. From orchestrating the Separatist crisis to engineering the Clone Wars, Palpatine created an environment rife with uncertainty and dread. This manufactured crisis justified emergency powers that further consolidated his control. The fear of external threats, like the Separatists, masked the internal erosion of freedoms. Senators voted away their own power in the name of security, echoing historical parallels where governments use crises to centralize authority. Palpatine's manipulation of Anakin Skywalker's fears is a key example of this tactic on a personal level. Exploiting Anakin's dread of loss, Palpatine seduced him toward the dark side, promising power over death itself. An ultimate fear of every living being. The seductive nature of power, corruption, and ambition. Power itself is seductive, and Palpatine understood this better than anyone. His philosophy capitalized on ambition and the human and alien desire for significance and security. He didn't simply seize power by force, he offered it gradually, wrapped in promises of peace and prosperity. His political maneuvers disguised authoritarianism as benevolence, playing on the hopes and frustrations of the Republic's citizens. This seduction extended beyond the political realm into the spiritual. Palpatine embodied the dark side of the Force, which tempts with promises of strength and control. The allure of power blinded many, Jedi and politicians alike, to the cost of their compromises. Subtle introduction and normalization of corrupt philosophy. Within the Republic, Palpatine's genius lay in how slowly and subtly he introduced his corrupting ideas. Rather than abrupt conquest, he normalized authoritarian measures under the guise of necessity and goodwill. Early in his tenure as Chancellor, he pushed for incremental expansions of executive power. The creation of the Grand Army of the Republic was framed as a defensive measure, yet it laid the groundwork for militarization under his control. The political paralysis and infighting of the Republic's Senate created a ripe environment for Palpatine's promises of efficiency. He exploited institutional weaknesses, portraying himself as the only figure capable of restoring order amid growing chaos. Palpatine's influence on key allies and opponents alike ensured minimal resistance to his reforms. He turned senators into loyalists through political favors, threats, and manipulation, making his rise appear inevitable. Key examples of early political maneuvers, laying the groundwork for empire. Let's highlight some specific moves Palpatine made early on to cement his control and set the stage for imperial rule. 1. Engineering the separatist crisis. Behind the scenes, Palpatine secretly controlled both sides of the Clone Wars. By fueling the separatist movement through his apprentice Count Dooku, he manufactured a galaxy-wide conflict. This conflict created a perpetual state of emergency, allowing him to justify extraordinary measures. The crisis deepened divisions and distracted the Senate from his growing power. It also primed the galaxy to accept authoritarian solutions as necessary evils. The granting of emergency powers. One of Palpatine's most significant early maneuvers was convincing the Senate to grant him emergency powers. These powers, initially temporary, allowed him to act unilaterally in the name of the Republic's security. This move eroded the system of checks and balances critical to democracy, enabling Palpatine to bypass legislative approval for his decisions. Once granted, these powers became the legal foundation for his eventual declaration as Emperor, undermining the Jedi Order. Palpatine sowed distrust toward the Jedi, portraying them as overreaching and disloyal. His manipulation culminated in Order 66, which turned the Republic's protectors into targets. By dismantling the Jedi, the Republic's moral and spiritual guardians, Palpatine removed the last major obstacle to absolute rule. This step was essential to replace the Republic's democratic ideals with imperial autocracy. Political manipulation and propaganda. Palpatine expertly used propaganda to justify his actions and reshape public perception. He framed the Republic's transformation as necessary progress, promising peace and stability. His public image as a humble, concerned leader masked the ruthless ambition underneath. Through carefully crafted speeches and media, he normalized authoritarian control and diminished opposition. Conclusion: the Empire as the culmination of a corrupt philosophy. It was the culmination of Palpatine's corrupting philosophy, a dangerous blend of authoritarian control, fear manipulation, and seductive ambition. By embedding these ideas within the Republic's political and social fabric, Palpatine ensured that when the Republic fell, the Empire rose seamlessly, cloaked in the guise of order and stability. Understanding these seeds helps us see that the Empire wasn't just an evil regime imposed from outside, it was a systemic collapse from within, orchestrated by a master manipulator who understood that true power lies not just in weapons, but in minds and hearts. This deep dive into Palpatine's philosophy gives us a clearer lens to view the galaxy's tragic fall and the enduring lessons Star Wars offers about power, freedom, and corruption. The fall of the Galactic Empire marked a dramatic turning point in the galaxy's history, yet its shadow never truly vanished. From the ashes of the Empire's defeat rose a new threat: the First Order, whose authoritarian structure, military doctrine, and ideological ambitions bear a chilling resemblance to the dark legacy left behind by Emperor Palpatine. To fully grasp the rise of the First Order, we need to understand how it directly inherits and perpetuates the Imperial blueprint, and how figures like Snoke and Kylo Ren play critical roles in continuing Palpatine's vision of galactic domination. The First Order, a direct descendant of the Empire. After the Empire's collapse at the Battle of Endor, remnants scattered into the unknown regions, regrouping far from the New Republic's watchful eyes. There, the seeds of the First Order were sown, nourished by desperation, fanaticism, and a relentless desire to reclaim lost glory. Structurally, The First Order mirrors the Empire in many fundamental ways. Centralized authoritarian control, much like Palpatine's rule, the First Order is governed by a rigid hierarchy that concentrates power in the hands of Supreme Leader Snoke and later, Kylo Ren. Dissent is crushed and obedience is absolute. Militarized society. The First Order's entire culture revolves around military strength, discipline, and expansionism. Its stormtroopers, though trained differently from the clones or original Imperial troops, embody the same unyielding loyalty and martial prowess, propaganda and indoctrination. The First Order invests heavily in ideological conditioning, training stormtroopers from childhood to serve without question. This echoes the Empire's use of fear and propaganda to maintain control over its subjects. These parallels demonstrate that the First Order is less a new regime and more a rebirth of Palpatine's empire, a phoenix rising from the ashes to continue the same dark mission under a new banner. Snoke and Kylo Ren, custodians of Palpatine's legacy. Central to the First Order's rise are two pivotal figures, Supreme Leader Snoke and his apprentice Kylo Ren. Their connection to Palpatine's vision is complex, blending both intentional continuation and unwitting perpetuation. Supreme Leader. Snoke's origins are shrouded in mystery, but it is heavily implied, especially through The Rise of Skywalker, that he is a creation or puppet of Palpatine himself. Snoke acts as a dark mirror to Palpatine, embodying the Sith Lord's manipulative mastery and desire for control without fully claiming the throne. Through Snoke, Palpatine's ideological framework persists. Snoke's use of fear, manipulation, and the dark side to consolidate power echoes Palpatine's tactics, while his cultivation of Kylo Ren as an instrument of control recalls Palpatine's mentorship of Anakin Skywalker. Kylo Ren, the tormented heir. Kylo Ren represents both the continuation and evolution of Palpatine's philosophy. His obsession with legacy and power is steeped in Palpatine's shadow, even as he struggles with internal conflict and doubts. Unlike Anakin, who fell under Palpatine's influence largely due to fear and desire to save loved ones, Kylo Ren's path is driven by a mixture of ambition, identity crisis, and a twisted sense of destiny. His aggressive push for dominance, alongside moments of vulnerability, showcase how Palpatine's corrupting philosophy can manifest in different ways across generations. Kylo's eventual confrontation with Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker symbolizes the climax of this dark lineage, the attempt to usurp the old master's throne and impose a new order in his stead. Ideological similarities, the New Order and the First Order. The Empire's so-called New Order was more than a name. It was a vision of totalitarian control, suppression of dissent, and a galaxy ruled by fear and power. The First Order inherits this vision with remarkable fidelity, absolute control, and fear. Both regimes utilize fear as their primary tool. The Empire's Death Star and the First Order's Starkiller base serve as terrifying symbols of power meant to cow entire star systems into submission. The First Order's enforcement of obedience, through indoctrination, surveillance, and brutal military force, reflects the same mechanisms Palpatine used to keep the galaxy in line. This systematic suppression of freedom is core to the New Order's identity: supremacy and purity. The Empire was built on ideals of human supremacy and a rigid social hierarchy, often marginalizing aliens and non-humans. While the First Order is more covert in some respects, it carries echoes of this supremacist ideology, emphasizing order and hierarchy to maintain its grip, the myth of destiny and legacy. Both the Empire and the First Order rely heavily on myth-making. Palpatine's rise was wrapped in propaganda, framing him as the galaxy's savior from chaos, while the First Order cultivates a messianic narrative around their leaders, portraying their cause as the inevitable restoration of order. Kylo Ren's fascination with legacy, as well as his struggle to live up to Vader's shadow, exemplifies how this mythos motivates individuals within the First Order to pursue Palpatine's vision with zeal. Conclusion. A continuum of darkness. The First Order's rise is not a new story, but the continuation of a dark legacy first sown by Palpatine. Through its authoritarian structure, military doctrine, and ideological zeal, the First Order echoes the Empire's blueprint in chilling detail. Snoke and Kylo Ren, serve as both custodians and evolvers of Palpatine's philosophy, demonstrating how corruption and ambition can transcend generations, morphing to fit new contexts but remaining rooted in the same thirst for control. Understanding this connection reveals that the galaxy's battle between freedom and tyranny is an ongoing saga, one where the ashes of past empires fuel the fires of future conflicts. The First Order is not just a new threat, it is the echo of an old nightmare, reminding us that vigilance is the price of liberty. Emperor Palpatine's reign was marked not only by ruthless conquest and manipulation, but also by a vision that extended far beyond his physical lifetime. Even after his apparent death in Return of the Jedi, his shadow loomed large over the galaxy, embodied by the secretive cult known as the Sith Eternal. This clandestine faction, hidden on the remote world of Exegol, was the ultimate expression of Palpatine's plan for eternal dark rule, a contingency designed to ensure that the Sith legacy would never fade, no matter the cost. The Sith Eternal, guardians of the Dark Legacy. The Sith Eternal was not just a fanatical sect of dark side devotees, they were the architects of Palpatine's grand design for galactic domination that would outlast his mortality. Operating from the shadows, this cult remained fiercely loyal to the Sith philosophy of power through fear, control, and subjugation. Exegol, the Sith Eternal's hidden stronghold in the unknown regions, was more than a refuge. It was a fortress of dark knowledge, ancient Sith rituals, and the birthplace of the Final Order, the new Imperial fleet that could rival or even surpass the original Empire. This secret society illustrates that Palpatine was never content with a single lifetime of rule. Instead, he prepared to become a transcendent force, one whose influence could persist indefinitely through proxies, clones, or spiritual essence. Exegol and the Final Order, the ultimate contingency. Exegol's introduction in The Rise of Skywalker marked the revelation of Palpatine's contingency plan, a final attempt to crush the Resistance and cement Sith domination over the galaxy. The Final Order fleet, composed of thousands of Star Destroyers equipped with planet-destroying weapons, symbolized the sheer scale and ambition of this plan. This was not merely an extension of the Empire, but a leap into something far more terrifying, a galactic death grip designed to erase all opposition. The sheer size of this fleet and its hidden location underscore Palpatine's foresight and patience. He anticipated defeat, exile, and even physical death, but ensured that his vision could be revived and executed with devastating power at the right moment. Through dark rituals and Sith science, Palpatine's survival after Return of the Jedi was hinted to be unnatural. A blend of Sith alchemy, cloning, and dark side mastery. His return was not just physical but symbolic, a reminder that the Sith Eternal had never truly been defeated. The sequel trilogy, a testament to Palpatine's enduring influence? The events of the sequel trilogy raise a compelling question. Did Palpatine ultimately succeed in embedding himself so deeply into the galaxy's fate that his legacy became inescapable? On one hand, his resurrection and near return to power illustrate the persistence of his dark philosophy. Even when believed dead and buried, his influence inspired fanaticism and fear that threatened to plunge the galaxy back into tyranny. Kylo Ren's struggle and eventual rejection of Palpatine's vision show that the Sith's hold is not absolute. But the fact that Palpatine could orchestrate such a near catastrophe after decades in hiding speaks volumes about his cunning and the depth of his contingency planning. Moreover, the Sith Eternal's existence reveals that the battle against darkness is never truly over. Palpatine's machinations remind us that evil often evolves, waiting patiently in the shadows for a chance to rise again. Legacy. Beyond death, philosophical and narrative implications. Palpatine's Sith Eternal plan also carries profound narrative weight. It challenges the notion of finality in Star Wars, that death is not the end, and evil can perpetuate itself through legacy and ideology. This echoes real-world themes about the dangers of unchecked power and fanaticism, showing how toxic philosophies can survive individuals and institutions alike. The Sith Eternal represents a spiritual and ideological inheritance darker than any physical empire, emphasizing that the struggle between light and dark is cyclical and eternal. Conclusion: Palpatine's enduring shadow. The Sith Eternal and its manifestation through Exegol and the Final Order symbolize Palpatine's ultimate bid for immortality and dominion. His long-term strategy was not merely to conquer the galaxy in his lifetime, but to create a system that could outlive him. a legacy of darkness that would persist beyond death. While the Resistance ultimately triumphed, the shadow of the Sith Eternal served as a stark reminder that evil is never fully defeated. Palpatine's influence remains an echo in the ashes of the galaxy, a cautionary tale of power's corrupting nature and the vigilance required to preserve freedom. The saga of Palpatine and the Sith Eternal leaves fans pondering the depths of darkness lurking beneath the surface of galactic history, and the eternal struggle to overcome it. Emperor Palpatine's reign was defined not only by military conquest and political manipulation, but also by a more insidious weapon: fear. His mastery of psychological warfare, a deliberate, systematic use of propaganda, fear-mongering, and manipulation, reshaped the very mindset of the galaxy's inhabitants. This contagion of fear did more than maintain control during his lifetime. It left deep scars that continue to influence galactic society long after his physical demise. Propaganda and fear as tools of control. Palpatine's rise to power was carefully orchestrated through a campaign of psychological manipulation. He exploited the galaxy's fears, fear of war, chaos, terrorism, and external threats, to present himself as the only figure capable of restoring order. Through carefully crafted speeches, media, and controlled narratives, Palpatine painted the Jedi as traitors, the Separatists as dangerous radicals, and the Republic as fragile and ineffective without his leadership. This constant barrage of fear justified the erosion of civil liberties and democratic norms. The public was conditioned to accept emergency powers and harsh crackdowns as necessary evils for the greater good. His propaganda machinery made fear a currency, traded for loyalty and obedience. The lasting impact on galactic psychology. The psychological imprint Palpatine left on the galaxy's population is profound and long-lasting. Even decades after his death, the memory of his tyranny continues to warp political discourse and social trust. In the aftermath of the Empire's fall, many systems remain traumatized by years of oppression. The scars of mistrust run deep between governments and their citizens, among different species, and even within families. This fracturing of trust created fertile ground for new authoritarian movements and extremist factions that either seek to revive Palpatine's legacy or weaponize his memory to further their own agendas. Memory as a weapon, manipulating fear beyond death. Palpatine's death did not mark the end of his influence. His image and legacy have become tools for psychological warfare wielded by various factions in the galaxy's ongoing conflicts. The First Order, for example, capitalizes on the lingering fear of the Empire's wrath to legitimize its own rise. Their propaganda echoes Palpatine's rhetoric, warning of chaos without strong leadership and promising order through absolute control. The shadow of the Emperor's reign serves as both a threat and a rallying point. Similarly, resistance groups and political opponents sometimes invoke Palpatine's tyranny as a cautionary tale, manipulating collective memory to unify people or justify extreme measures. This complex relationship with Palpatine's legacy shows how fear and trauma can be repurposed, weaponized to control minds long after the original tyrant has fallen. Psychological trauma on characters and factions. On a more personal level, Palpatine's reign inflicted deep psychological wounds on individuals and groups who lived through his oppressive rule. Jedi survivors carry the burden of betrayal and near annihilation. Their faith in the Republic shattered. Many struggle with distrust and a fractured identity. Characters like Luke Skywalker wrestle with the trauma of facing an enemy who used manipulation and fear rather than open confrontation. For political leaders and ordinary citizens alike, memories of surveillance, brutality, and lost freedoms create an underlying anxiety that shapes their decisions and interactions. Even those who never directly experience the Empire's worst acts grow up in its shadow, inheriting a collective trauma that colors their worldview. The unseen war, psychological battlefields. Palpatine's psychological warfare extended beyond immediate control to a more subtle, ongoing battle for hearts and minds. This unseen war shapes alliances, conflicts, and political movements throughout the galaxy. The paranoia and suspicion fostered under his rule linger in governments and rebel cells alike, complicating cooperation and healing. Understanding this aspect of Palpatine's legacy helps explain why the struggle for freedom is never just about military might, but but also about reclaiming trust, rebuilding communities, and overcoming the fear that can divide and conquer. Conclusion: the enduring contagion. In conclusion, Palpatine's systematic use of propaganda and fear created a contagion that infected not only institutions but the very psyche of the galaxy's inhabitants. His psychological warfare was as devastating as any battle fleet, leaving wounds that bleed into the present day. The memory of his tyranny, while a warning, can also be a weapon. Manipulated by those who seek power or revenge, perpetuating cycles of fear and control. Recognizing this contagion is crucial for understanding the galaxy's ongoing conflicts and the profound challenges faced by those who dare to resist oppression. The battle against Palpatine's legacy is a battle for minds and hearts, one that continues long after the Emperor's throne has fallen. The fall of Emperor Palpatine and the collapse of the Galactic Empire marked a pivotal turning point for the galaxy. Yet, despite the Empire's defeat, Palpatine's ideological remnants continue to haunt every corner of the galaxy, embedded in institutions, mindsets, and scars left on its people. The struggle to dismantle this dark legacy is ongoing, complex, and fraught with obstacles. The galaxy finds itself caught in a perpetual cycle of confronting and attempting to overcome the pervasive influence of one of its most insidious tyrants. The New Republic's struggle, a fragile foundation founded in the aftermath of the Empire's fall, the New Republic embodies hope, a vision of democracy restored and peace achieved. Yet, building a galaxy-wide government from the ashes of authoritarian rule is no small feat. The New Republic faces tremendous challenges. Fragmented systems still loyal to the Empire's ideals, deep-seated mistrust between species and sectors, and political infighting fueled by decades of fear and trauma. Palpatine's ideological shadow lingers within these fractures. The centralized control he wielded has left a vacuum difficult to fill with genuine cooperation. Some factions within the New Republic advocate for strong leadership, fearing chaos without it, an echo of Palpatine's own arguments. Moreover, remnants of the Empire, and later the First Order, seek to exploit these vulnerabilities, demonstrating that Palpatine's vision never truly died, but rather transformed and adapted to new contexts. Movements and characters, fighting for a new dawn. Despite the heavy legacy, heroes and movements arise to challenge the ongoing cycle. They symbolize the galaxy's resilience and desire for genuine freedom beyond the shadow of the Sith Lord, the Resistance. Emerging as the primary opposition to the First Order, the Resistance continues, the fight against authoritarianism fueled by Palpatine's legacy. Led by figures like Leia Organa, it embodies the spirit of rebellion and hope that defined the galaxy's earlier battles. Their struggle is not just military, but ideological, working to inspire unity and trust among disparate groups, rebuilding alliances fractured by fear and distrust. Rey, a symbol of renewal. Rey's journey is emblematic of the galaxy's quest to break free from the past. Born with no ties to the old regimes, she rises not through inheritance or legacy, but through choice and courage. Her confrontation with Palpatine's return and ultimate defeat signals a turning point, a rejection of destiny dictated by darkness, and a commitment to forging a new path. Other movements and localized efforts. Their efforts include promoting cross-cultural understanding, addressing historical grievances, and advocating transparency and justice. These grassroots movements remind us that breaking Palpatine's cycle requires change not only at the top, but also within the fabric of everyday life. Can the galaxy truly escape Palpatine's shadow? This leads to a profound question. Is it possible for the galaxy to ever fully escape the pervasive influence of Palpatine's ideology, or is his legacy an eternal shadow? The cyclical nature of Star Wars storytelling suggests that the battle between light and dark, freedom and tyranny, is never fully resolved, a cosmic dance as old as the Force itself. Palpatine's manipulation of fear, control, and power created systemic issues that cannot be undone overnight. These ideas can resurface whenever societies face fear, uncertainty, or division. However, the galaxy's capacity for hope, courage, and unity also provides a counterbalance. The stories of heroes like Leia, Luke, and Rey show that breaking the cycle is possible. But it requires vigilance, sacrifice, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Conclusion: breaking the cycle. The New Republic and countless others strive to build a future free from fear, oppression, and manipulation. While echoes of Palpatine's vision persist, the rise of new heroes and movements offers hope that the cycle of tyranny can be broken. Ultimately, the story of Star Wars teaches us that freedom is never guaranteed. It must be continuously earned, defended, and renewed. The galaxy may always grapple with its past, but through collective effort and resilience, it can chart a course toward a brighter future beyond the shadow of the Sith.